we're up to the second half, the last half of the base. The line begins, if you remember last time we finished off with a question, I'll just repeat the question. Huh?
Translate tonight.
So I have to answer the question, right? Okay. So the question was, the Perek, we understand the Perek base is coming to explain the same thing as Perek Aleph, Bipratis Yesa, in an oifen of Seichel, that even if you have to answer a min, you'll be able to understand, explain to him and prove to him the Teres of Baal Shem Tov that the Nivra needs to have a Schadshus Kol Regel V'Regel. Okay, so that went on with a moshel of Kriyas Yamsuf. We went through the whole thing of Kriyas Yamsuf. We finished off that the Ma'aser Pearl is you need the Koyach HaPearl B'Nifel Tomid Lach Yesel L'Kaima, and this is the Oisis of Asom Monis. So we finished, we proved the Inyan. We can now go on to Perek Gimel. We see there's another whole shtickle V'Ata Machayas Kul. Let's read it a little bit inside as well to see what exactly is he saying. On what? On this what he said before, that you need the Koyach HaPearl B'Nifel the whole time. It says V'Ata Machayas Kulam Al Tikri Machaya Ela Mahava. It doesn't just mean that Ata Machayas Kulam, it also means Ata Mahavas Kulam. Dahaina, that means to say Yesh Miyayin. So it's as if the pasuk says V'Ata Mahavas Kulam. Okay. So what do we need to say this for? Let's go further. Va'ata hein beginas oisius ma'alaf hatov. Va'hei hein mitzois hapeh mekoya oisius. Okay, so ata is also meramas on the oisius. Va'af she'en mit musa guf. Although there's no, the Eibush doesn't have a guf. Harimikrim, nevertheless, harimikrim ola diva akosov. It says beferish psukim about dibu. It says vayidab Hashem, vayem Hashem. V'hi beginas iskavos hachof beis oisius el yonis l'neviim. ומשלבשש בשיחלם והשגלוסם לבן הנבואה וגם במחשבתם ודיבורים כמשקוסו ברוח השם דיבר בהם ולא עשה על השני כמשקוסו והריזו בשער נבואה. So we find the Inyan of Isis HaDibur L'mayla. It's not just Shem HaMushal, it's not just stam speaking, it's Takik Pshuti, there's Isis. And they are mislabish by the Nevi'im. Ke'enzeu slabshus Isis bibruim. So before we finish off, so what is he saying over here? What is he adding on? What was difficult? And what does the Alter Rebbe need to have this whole Hisofen? What does he say when he says Va'ata Machayas Kulam Altik Machaya La Mahava? Manoshach, if we're trying to prove the Baal Shem Tov's Chidush, that you need to have the Ischadshus, the Koyach HaPearl B'Nifel Kol Regel V'Regel, we've explained that till now. What's the Hisofen now? So, if we go back to what we learned in the first Perek, we'll remind ourselves that there was two parts to the Teres HaBaal Shem Tov. The Etzem Teres HaBaal Shem Tov, which says that L'olam Hashem Dvocha Nitzav HaShamayim means that the Dva Havai has to be inside the Nivra Kol Regel V'Regel, includes 2 points. Not just the fact that it has to be there Kol Regel V'Regel, but also the Inyan of Islapshus. If you remember, that in the Medrash Rabbah, in the Medrash Tilim, on which is based the Teres of Baal Shem Tov, it doesn't say this point. All it says is that you need the Dva Havai to keep the Rakia, the Rakia has to be there the whole time. But it doesn't say exactly where it has to be. The Baal Shem Tov was Moisif that it has to be Beislapshis, Mulubish, inside the Rakia. And not only in the Rakia, Bechlal, but Beseich Kol HaRakiim, Bipratius. In other words, the Inyan of Islapshus Elokus, Ki'ilu Elokus is made to measure to each and every chelik of the Bria. And that's why when he came to the second half of Perek Aleph, he went into the Shaila. There's only 10 Maimoris. How are you going to take a Maimor Rakia, Rakia, and put it inside a Prat that's in the Rakia? How are you going to take the Maimor of whatever Maimor was buried the earth and put it inside a stone? There's no Evan in the Asor Maimoris. Where does it say Yehi Evan? So he explained, it doesn't matter that it doesn't say the words in the Asor Maimoris. There's only 10 Maimoris, and there's many Nivroim. How do you get these slapshus of a Maimor Leki inside a Pratistik Nivra? What you have to do is there's a whole system of tzirufim. That's the Reish Lamed Aleph Sha'arim Panim V'Ocher. There's a whole system how the Oisius are mitzdaref one to another, and through that tzirufim you can get down to the words Evan. And that's he Evan, and that's the Maimon the key, which is Mahava, Machaya, this Evan. So there was two things again. There's this Etzem Havas called Rega, and the fact that it's mislapshus in each and every nivra. Now let's get back to Perek Beis. What was the taina of the minim that the Alter Rebbe is dealing with? Chuvas haminim v'gilu sheish to'uso. They had a problem with two things. They had a problem with Hashgacha Pratis and with Moifsi. First, the Alter Rebbe deals with the Etzem Tois. What's the Etzem Tois? What's the Sheirish of the Tois? The Sheirish of the Tois is that they didn't understand the difference between Yesh Miyayin and Yesh Miyesh. And the Alter Rebbe gives a whole mashal of Kriyas Yamsuf. Yesh Miyesh, all you're doing is changing the spaces. Taking a piece of silver, moving it around a bit, it becomes the shape of something else. So what did you do? You created something? No. Here we're talking about B'riyas Shemayim V'Aretz, which is Yesh Miyayin. So here you need to have Kol Rega V'Rega. So which part of the Baal Shem Tov did he prove up until now? He only proved the Gilui Sheirish To'osam, the difference between Yesh Miyayin and Yesh Miyesh. The Yesh Miyayin needs the Keich HaPoel, Kol Rega V'Rega. But he didn't get into the second point of the Baal Shem Tov, which is also a choshev, a part of the Teis of Baal Shem Tov, that the Dvar Havaya has to be Behislapshus inside the Nifel Beprotius.
What is Slapshus?
Hislapshus means it goes down to the protistical level of the Nifla.
No.
It's not...
And not.
And not Ba'ifan Klali. There's one Dvar Havaya, like the sun. The sun's in the sky and sends out light to the whole sky and to earth, and whoever can see the sun. So fine, so the sun is over there and he's shining also to me. But the sun has nothing to do with my dining room. When he's shining through my window, he doesn't care about my dining room. He's over there and it goes wherever it goes. A slapshus means you're taking the sun, or a chelik of the sun, and you're bringing it inside your dining room, and he's made to measure for your dining room. That's your personal chandelier sun, if you have such a thing. With Gash, which we don't have, but in India, you're taking a personal oil, a chayas for this Evan. It's not the same chayas that's in that Evan. It's a different oisius, different names, different tziruf. So that's what Islapshus means. And that's negeta achtus Hashem, in every single place, in every single detail. So until now we've only spoken about the klolistic inyan. What about the second part, the inyan of Islapshus? So that's what he says now. Val zenam va'atem machayes kulon, al tikun machaya ela mahava dahainu yesh miyayin. What is the diak haloshen over here? The diak is on the word kulon. Va'ata machaya es kulon, al tikun machaya ela mahava. It's as if he would have said va'ata mahava es kulon, meaning every single niver beprotius. It's not va'ata machaya like the simple pshat is. What's va'ata machaya es kulon in simple in psukim? What does that mean? Wherever this pasuk is, I think it's in Nehemiah, there's a pasuk in Mach which says va'ata machaya es kulon. What does it mean? The Eibishter gives mazon, he sends the rain, and the rain makes things grow, so you have food for all the nivroim. Good, so that's machaya es kulon. But it's not dealing with every single thing. His havos is creation. Creation is only the Eibishter is the Beira. Is we're saying, yeah, va'ata, do. The Eibishter, you are being mahave yesh miyayin kulam, every single liver by from proti. That is the inyan of Islapshus, that's the inyan of proteus. Islapshus proteus. That answers the hystyphus, the problem that the minim had. They had a problem with the etzem inyan of yesh miyayin, and basically they had a problem with, as he said, hashgacha pratis and moifsim. Why did they say there's no hashgacha pratis? Why did they have a hard time with hashgacha pratis? Because they said the Eibush is up there, and the nivra is down here. How can he mix in? Remember last time we gave a marshal, and so once you have the cheshbon that 2 + 2 = 4, you can't start changing the rules when you get into the hundreds and the thousands and the millions. If 2 and 2 = 4, then 2 million and 2 million also makes 4 million. It's the same cheshbon. You can't change around the middle. That's only a marshal, but al derech there. The Eibush set out a system of his slabshus, of his ilov of his shtalshlus. Once you come down here, he's up there, you can't mix in. That's why there's no moifsim. And it's definitely no hashgacha pratis. You can't see what's going on. It's too high. Ramal kol goyim Hashem, they said. Says the Alter Rebbe, and it's nishta, the pasuk says va'ata machayes kulon. And the Svarim translate the word al tikun machaya la mahava. It's a form of a drush in the pasuk. The ata mahava es kulon. That means you are being mahava every single one. Who can be mahava? Only the Eibishter. So therefore there has to be a hashgacha pratis on every single nivra to be mehavim yesh miyayin, and it can't last without it. Because as we said before, as soon as the Dvar Havaya would leave him, it would disappear. He says there has to be a Dvar Havaya for every single nivra by from prati. So the diak is on the word kulon. Ayin Kain, you said that in order to get down to the Protestant Nivra, you have to have oisis hamasimes. You have to have oisis which are made to measure. Eved is not the same oisis as rakia. She says, no, it's no problem. Va'ata is merames on that as well. Va'ata means aleph till tov, and hey mitzoy saper, which means the oisis can be mitzaref, and like we said earlier in the first period, that each nivra can have his own oisis. Then, once you've said that, and you've translated to va'ata means you, the Eibishter, and now you're translating to mean the oisis, the way the Eibishter is speaking, so it sounds a bit funny. You're saying that the Eibishter has oisius and he speaks. You're saying kipshuta that there's oisius. She says, yeah, even though there's no real guf l'mayla, yeah, ene de musaguf, ene guf, is how in mikra mole dibrakos, if we find clearly that that's how the Torah speaks. In other words, now he's going to have to prove that although ene de musaguf, nevertheless, there is some inyan of per l'mayla. Hey mitzayis ha-per, so there has to be a per elyon. Remember, so we say in Pasach Eliyot, malchus per Torah shebal per korinun li. So we say there is a per l'mayla. So you may think, well, the per l'mayla, there's no real per l'mayla. It's like the Rambam says, all the Torahim of the Eibishter are Shem HaMushal. Right? Yad Hashem. What's Yad Hashem mean? Doesn't mean he has a hand. What does the Rambam use the expression? Cherev yeshlo. Does the Eibishter need a cherev to kill the enemies? He doesn't need a cherev. So does it mean orik charbi? So it's a Shem HaMushal. It's a dibur koloshen b'nei Adam. So maybe that's the case over here. You're saying the Eibishter has oisius, maybe it's dibur koloshen b'nei Adam. So but no, we mean there's a per l'mayla, whatever that means in Ruchnius. There's a per l'mayla, and there are oisius. And what's the raya? Bring me a raya that there's oisius l'mayla. Just say because it says vayem Hashem. Oh, maybe that's also Shem HaMushal. Orik Charbi is Shem HaMushal. Natisi Mincha is Shem HaMushal. Vaidab Hashem is also Shem HaMushal. How do we know that it's not Shem HaMushal? So he says, no, I can prove it to you from the Nevi'im. V'hi v'chinas is Galas Chav Beis Oisius Elyonis l'Nevi'im u'mislabshus b'sichlo v'hasagos, which goes down into his slabshus. Here you see clearly the Indian of his slabshus. V'mara Nevu v'gam b'machshavtim v'diburam. And what's the pasuk? Kumeshikosav Ruach Hashem diba bi umilose al l'shoini. Here you can't say that it's a Shem HaMushal. What words are on his tongue? He says milosoi of the Eibishter. I see the Navi saying, I'm not saying anything of myself. The Eibishter is speaking through me. So the words that you hear on my tongue is the Eibishter speaking. Now, if there's no Oisius L'mayla, it doesn't make sense to say that. Here you see that the Oisius Ruchnis of the Eibishter, whatever that means in Ruchnis, which you can't understand, is being mislabish al l'shoini on the Lashon HaGashmi of the Navi. So you see there's a chiba of Ruchnis and Gashmis from Ruchnis tika Oisius to Gashmis tika tongue of the Navi. Which basically just tells you also the ishtalshus of how the Oisius come from Ruchnis into Gashmis. But the point is that there is definitely an inyan of Oisius Gipshuto. However that means, whatever that means in Ruchnis. So therefore it's not a pera to say Va'ata is going on the Oisius, and that's taka how Va'ata Machayas Kulam. We mustn't forget the simple Pshat. Va'ata means the Eibishter. The Eibishter is being Machayas Kulam, he's being Mahaves Kulam, but how is he being Mahaves Kulam? Through his Dibur, which is Oisius Aleph until Tov, with the Hemitzah Sefer. Okay, Enze, now we're going to have a run into a small problem. What's going to be the problem now? The Oisius of the Nevi'im, that's a proof that the Eibishter has real Oisius, whatever that is. And those Oisius come down to the Nevi'im. Okay, so then let's ask a Klotz Kasha. When a Navi speaks, does he create things when he speaks? Maybe he could create, but does he create? When he says in the Nevuah, Vayidam Hashem, Koyam Hashem, does he create something? Doesn't create something. So therefore, the dimion, the comparison between Oisius Adibul of a Navi doesn't really go together with Oisius of his Havish Miyayin. So first of all he says, okay, Enze, similar to this, who he slapshus Oisius, Oisius Bibruim, similar to the slapshus of Oisius Ruchnis of Nevuah into the Lashon HaGashmi of the Navi, is similar to that, is also benegeh to the Oisius or Ruchnis of the Eibishter, to create, K'dichsiv. Now you can bring a possibly Dvashim Shemayim Nasu. So, but Olam was by me a Pella. Why did he bring this pasuk over here? He could have brought it back there when he was speaking about Olam Hashem Tvachad Yitzvah Shemayim. Bring another pasuk. B'dvar Hashem Shemayim Nasu. That's a most famous pasuk that's brought down for this. The answer is, if we wouldn't have the raya that Oisius Hadibu means Kipshute Dibu, I would have translated that pasuk also. B'dvar Hashem meaning V'shem HaMushal Koloshim B'nei Adam. But now that he's proven that Oisius is Kipshute, there's Oisius Dvar Hashem. So now B'dvar Hashem Uvuruach Piv is Kipshute. There's a Peh L'mayla and there's a Dibu L'mayla, and they are creating the Nivra. So then what is taka the difference between the Oisius of a Navi speaking that doesn't create anything and the Oisius of his Havus, Yeshmiyayin, that does create? What is taka the difference? So here's the Alter Rebbe answers that question. Rak, the difference is that those Oisius which create is Shehi Adidei Hishtalshles Rabbis Vatsumis Ad Sheyodes Lasia Gufnis. Those Oisius which create go through many Ishtalshles until they come to Gashmistik Asiya Gufnis. Masha'enkin Hasogas Hanavim Hi Ba'atzilus HaMislabeshes Ba'edam Havriya. How does that answer the question? What's the difference between these Oisius and those Oisius? When the Eibush is creating something, the Oisius come all the way down to Edom Asiya HaGufnis. So it creates a Gufnistik, a Gashmistik table, not a Ruchnistik table. Whereas the Oisius that come down to the Novi are from Atzilus, going into Edom Habriya, and no further? Isn't that so we just said before, when we last say Al Lashoni, the Oisius come down? I mean, is he speaking up Edom Habriya, is he standing? Where's the Novi standing when he's speaking? In Edom Habriya and Edom Asiya. I mean, he may have his Pashtus Agashmis, Navim take off when they say Navur, but they're still not in Mazah Agashmi. How does that answer the question? So l'cha'ira, although it doesn't say mamish those words over here, but with Pashtus we're going to have to say like this. Everybody knows the difference between Hislapshus and B'derech Maiva. B'derech Hislapshus, B'derech Maiva. You know the difference? B'derech Klal is spoken about. It's a famous Drush Yain V'Sheicha from the Tzemach Tzedek, Bariches, of the difference between Hislapshus and Maiva. Hislapshus means, Al Derech Moshe, what's the Moshe that's given for Hislapshus? B'yachas to Maiva. B'derech Hislapshus means the Moshe when a person understands a Seichel. So the Seichel is going into his head and he understands it. He understands the way he understands it. So it's Melubish in his mind. He then can take it further, whatever he wants, but it's become a Seichel in his mind. And if he works harder understanding things, physically his brain would become stronger. The brain's like a muscle. If you do a lot of exercises, you get big muscles. If you use a lot of brain exercises, the brain expands. This is a minor. Friedrich Rebbe says, I mentioned it once, that when a person is misasib b'muskolis, he has more kmotim in his brain. Kmotim, I suppose, means folds. I mean, there's expansion of the brain. It changes. So it's physically bislapshus, just like all the koiches are bislapshus in the hand. You do exercise, your hands are going to become strong. Well, it's a koich ruchni, isn't it? It's a koich ruchni, but it's melubish in the guf, so there's a yichud between the ruchnis hanefesh and the gashmistic guf, and it's going to affect the gashmis. As opposed to the Moshe, what wouldn't be his slapshus? As opposed to the Moshe Rotzen. Rotzen is a koich makiv. If you want to do exercises and you want to understand and you want to run a mile, you're not going to get any stronger muscle just by wanting. You actually have to do it. Be slapshus. Rotzen is a makif. It doesn't affect anything. So Rotzen is a koich makif, and the other koich is a koich pnimim. They are be slapshus. That's mostly slapshus. What would be a moshel of not mamish slapshus? It's called b'derech maive, just going through, on the way through.
Like when you write the seichel with your hand?
Right seichel, right. So when you write down the seichel with your hand, the seichel is the oasis from your seichel going onto a piece of paper, and it's going through the hand. Does the hand become smarter because you wrote the Tifa Seichel?
Yeah.
Why doesn't it become smarter? Because the hand it's not mislabish in the hand, it's passing through the hand. It's just passing through. Now does that mean the hand has no effect on the Seichel? If only passing through, that means it has no effect? There has to be some effect, because who made these oasis ruchnim from your mind come onto a physical piece of paper? Your hand with your pen.
That's just the tzuras, not the teichen.
Not the teichen, exactly. But you were able to now, you needed the hand, because when you thought of the oasis on the paper, it didn't start writing. Maybe one day they'll invent computers that do that as well. But at the moment, the seichel going to think about writing, it doesn't get the oasis onto the paper. How did you get the oasis on the paper? It had to go through your hand. So the little bit of islapshus is enough just to make it from oasis ruchnius into oasis gashmis on the paper. But the actual oasis, the seichel itself, the hand is no wiser than it was before. That's called b'derech maiva. So there's the little bit of islapshus that there is, b'derech maiva, is only to change it from ruchnis to gashmis. But be'etzim it remains the same seichel, and the hand makes no change to the seichel, and the hand becomes no wiser. Al derech zeh, if we take it back to over here, when he says the oasis amahavi yesh mi'ayin, create shemayim v'aretz, he says through ishtalshlus rabbis v'atzumas ad sheyodis la'asiyah gufnis. That's b'derech islapshus. The oasis come down into oasis which can make a table gashmi. That's like islapshus. It's like seichel coming into the mind. The mind gets it. The mind became wiser now. There's a difference to the moyach hagashmi. Whereas Mashe'en kin asogas hanavim hi ba'atzilus hamislabeshes ba'olam habriya, and stops there. The islapshus of the Nevi'im is only to take it out from the olam which is kula lakus, which a Navi can't really get a hold of. Even Moshe Rabbeinu says his nevuah was not in olam atzilus. It was in atzilus the way it came into olam habriya. Because as Moshe Rabbeinu stood as a nivra, it had to go down one step out of atzilus, at least into olam habriya, which is olam hasanivroim. But once it came to olam habriya, it didn't have to go b'derech his slabshus in yitzira and his slabshus in asiyah. It went b'derech maive through yitzira asiyah. It had to go through b'derech maive of asiyah, just like the seichel has to go b'derech maive through the hand. Otherwise, it won't come onto the piece of paper. So the seichel, the nevuah had to go through yitzira and asiyah b'derech maive. Otherwise, it won't come into milas al lishayni. It won't come into his physical tongue. So it has to go through a shtickle change, just like the seichel goes through a shtickle change by going through the hand. But that's about it. But it doesn't change it's not a slapshus. That's why it's not going to make anything. It's going to stay ruchnius, which is an olam habriya. So that would be mistam of the pshat when he says asogas hanavim ba'atzilus hamislabeshes b'briya. He stops over there. It's mislabish in briya. What about yitzir and asir? That's b'derech maivi. So basically, the whole half of the Perek is to finish off the Teis of Baal Shem Tov also for those minim that besides the fact that the etzem inyav ishavis yesh mi'ayin is not the same as yesh mi'yesh, which is the yesod of the Torah of the minim. The other part of the Perek is to explain that is b'derech islapshus in each nivra. Therefore, you have a taina by hashgacha pratis. If he has to be mahava es kulam, he has to be mahava this table as well, and that table, every single prat and detail in the world. So therefore, everything's hashgacha pratis. And since he's being mahavit, he can change it around. He can make it mish yem l'shema v'yidlak is yem l'chemetz v'yidlak. He can change it around, make this go like that. He can make nisav when he flies. So therefore, what's their problem with meifsim shabbatayra? What's the problem? He's creating an ayish man. He can create it this way. He can create it that way. So that answers.
Why do you change pshat and kulam between mechaya and mahavit? Mechaya means that he was already in his hava, and you're constantly being mechaya, or you're constantly being
the
mahavit.
simple pshat of machaya means, according to the Mefarshei HaKosu, simple pshat of machaya means he makes sure there's enough food for everyone. He's nice and Muslim mechol habriyos. So he makes it rain. No, because you're already pre-programmed to hashgacha pratis because you're used to Teres Baal Shem Tov. But if we go before that, Mefarshei HaKosu just say Bata Machayas Kula means he gives mazon to everyone. How do you make? He makes enough food to know. There's enough wheat in the field. You want a meal? Go to the field, cut some wheat. But it's not a hashgacha pratis in every single livra. So, but mahava it shows that based on the inyan of mishavas ishmiyayin, that you can't be even for a rega without the dvar havai being inside you. So therefore, after mahavas kulim is showing you that every single nivra needs that. It's not just an inyan kloli. Kulam needs this. His havas prati. If kulam needs his havas prati, then there's a hashgacha prati. In other words, the hashgacha pratis is the his havas pratis and the chayes pratis.
And what is it there?
Huh?
Slapshus and schanshus. Tmidis. They're totally there. Could you have the other? Or?
From the Baal Shem Tov, it would seem that it is Tali Zebazeh. Theoretically, it doesn't have to be Tali Zebazeh. You can have, for example, something being Nishava Yesh Miyayin and Tali Legamri on a mocker and not be slapshus. For example, the sunlight is dovuk. It has to have the sun the whole time. As soon as the sun goes away, the light disappears. So the sunlight needs the mo'er the whole time. But the sun is not melubish inside the oil. The oil is mispashit all the way the mirachik, as we'll see in the next page, the mashal of the Oil HaShemesh. So it's not mechuyev to be inside. The chiddush is that the Maimah has to be inside because there's no detail in the world. In other words, the maskana comes out, there's no detail in the world that's outside of a lukus. Or as the expression uses in Perek Zayin, less man denofed mirshusei. You can't run away, there's nowhere to go, because wherever you're going, that's a lukus. It's being this havak or regulator. So there's nothing that's outside of him. So everything is bottled. Everything is totally total in the Eibishter. The next part of the Perek is going to be, I'll leave you with a question, what is the next Perek going to be? What is he, I don't want you to lose your seat for 2 days, but for Perek is now we're saying something else. What? It's not the Hemshech of Perek Beis, it's a new Perek. What's the new Perek come to tell us? What didn't we know till now? We didn't know everything's bottled, of course we know everything's bottled. If he needs the Dvar Vaya the whole time, the Oil HaShemesh is bottled to the Shemesh. A Nivra which needs to be Nischadish Kol Rega V'Rega is totally non-independent. So then what? So when everything's bottled, so what's the problem now? What's Achrad? Well, I'm going to tell you something new. What's the new thing? The next time.